Here back with another video. Thank you for your support on the most recent video. It's good to see you guys coming back and tuning into my channel. I really appreciate the support throughout the years. And again, you know, if you guys have been watching my Twitch, you probably heard me allude to my concerns about this, but I want to highlight a couple of quick updates that are really forward mind right now. One is there's a release note targeting some of the concerns we had with this auto scroll, etc. for download. But the real big update today is this G18. And so I'm going to give you my overall thoughts about G18 and talk about kind of how I feel about this. And then I want to get your comments, your ideas and your thoughts in the comments here and really collect the feedback, because it's important to me to understand, you know, how you guys want to interact with this and take this, because it really, to me, reminds me of a period in time in Marvel Strike Force, and I'll talk about that in a little bit here. So let's start with the big announcement here, and realistically, you know, G18 coming to the game, no surprise, but let's just talk about the devs' communication about it, right? The road to anticipated Dark Dimension begins with the upcoming release of GT18, slated for release on tomorrow. So if you're watching this right now, here on the 17th, tomorrow the 18th, you're going to be getting the update that'll include this inside of the stores and shops like we talked about, as well as a calendar that's already in game for those people who are ahead of time based on their certain longitude. All right, that being said, in creating next level gear, the dev team reflected on the player experience. In upgrading the previous gear tiers, we wanted to ensure Gear 18 feels truly impactful. You'll see significant stat increases. The power of some characters could be nearly double compared to other gear tiers. The contribution when that final gear tier is equipped and you hit complete. Historically, the stat increases in the final stages of progressing next level were minimal. With Gear 18, a significant portion of the new power will come after equipping the final gear piece. All right. Well, the good news with this is it'll hopefully prevent you guys from putting it on characters too quickly and accidentally putting them on characters that are obsolete. So let's just take a look. So on the actual YouTube video right here. Right, so first things first, surprise, surprise, 5 red Apocalypse confirmed soon. All right, and that's just from the final gear piece and hitting upgrade. That is a substantial increase with math that just baffles me that they don't recount when we went from 13 to 14, which we're gonna continue to go over here. Let's take a look at some of these truly impactful characters that are sitting on our roster right now. All these guys are gonna be 5/7, just for purposes of keeping them linear. And I'm blown away by the percentage increase by these stats. And a little intimidated, to be clear. Some pretty sizable stat increases here. All right, skipping ahead, we've got Thor, almost 100k damage. And that was it from Marvel Strike Force. Okay, so I just want to continue to say this, that Gear G18 goes live and you'll be able to see the characters page on the website. So this will be tomorrow at 2 p.m. You'll see them in the supply section of the store. Rewards for upcoming events. We saw those if you were logging in at Reset yesterday. You did see them in the actual incursion. Correction, the actual trial for Nova. You saw them at the end of the run. There was actually G18 pieces available. So, you know, they are making it available at the top tier of the milestones, etc. And so the enhancing your roster with Gear Tier 18 is intended to be an epic journey, unless you refresh your store for hundreds of cores a day and spending the gold to get there. As mentioned, this is just the start of the road to Dark Dimension 6 with lots of adventures along the way. You can also look forward to a number of activities. that'll help prepare the roster for the challenge of facing and unlocking the infamous Super Scroll. Okay, just to align with the release of the Secret Invasion coming up. So these free events will include a Dark Dimension 6 countdown calendar, which again has already appeared in game for players that are ahead of time here. Weekly inbox messages and weekly free claims on the web, which all contain Dark Dimension 6 countdown orb fragments. Okay, and so in the orbs, and without any idea of how much you're going to attain or what the rarity of these, Gear 18 mini uniques, 17 mini uniques, 16 mini uniques, teal stat catalyst parts, 1, 4, and 5 gold and training modules. So all things that could be, you know, from this calendar to help us gear up characters, all things that could be welcome, but we'll be surprised if it isn't hidden behind massive amounts of RNG. And then, so there's going to be a massive celebration for somebody who wins the actual Dark Dimension Championship, and they say they can't wait to embark on the journey with us. Okay. So here's my take. Realistically, if you guys have been following the channel, 13 to 14, I talk about a lot as one of the worst experiences I had in Marvel Strike Force. And what it was specifically was when kits just failed to work because a person was able to outspend another person. And the reason why that largely was a problem was the focus and resistance differential. So a lot of characters rely on applying debuffs. Now, on many kits, they do have thousands of modifiers to add for those pluses. But remember that when these gear jumps happen, we find the flaws with their planning with these numbers. We'll see Phoenix, etc., for those problems. So it was really kind of a difficult proposition for players, including, you know, if you remember, the fixed MSF movement was largely about that 13 to 14 gateway when, you know, taking your gear tier 13 AIM team stopped working against, that's how long back it goes, stopped working because you couldn't apply debuffs to any of the new characters that were G14. All these things are going to be heavily considered in potentially diminishing what has become a fun and potentially, and well, actually, I'll say this, and the most recent 32 Cosmic Crucible has been the most fun I've had in Marvel Strike Force since the release of, or my acquisition of Ultron. And that's saying something. And so it allowed kind of the Wild West. You know, I was facing teams that, you know, sometimes my opponent had cobbled together and I had to really dig into my own knowledge of kits to theorycraft. And what this does is this really takes that away when it comes down to these theorycrafted teams won't have much use outside of game modes if I can't put G18 on them. And so being able to spread that across my roster with the currently 12 plus teams needed for Cosmic Crucible, the 20 plus teams needed for War, the 20 plus teams needed for Raid. And I mean, think about this, right? Or 20 plus characters needed for raids. It's a big deal when you're trying to find the game mode that you should be building towards. And I will tell you the one thing about Dark Dimensions that are hopeful is if you build your roster with Dark Dimension 6 in sight and in mind, you will probably get a jumpstart and usually an influx. We'll have to double check the rewards when they go live of gear that refreshes your roster in a way that helps you progress it. So the reason is, if you remember in previous iterations of Dark Dimension, you get fully completed gear. So my recommendation is to really, and you won't see me build this character to G18 right now. It's way too preemptive. But characters that you build towards G18 to help you get into Dark Dimension 6 are really going to be the gateway to hopefully some relief. The sooner you can get through Dark Dimension 6 by specifically equipping characters that make the most sense for your roster and help you overcome tasks that allow you to continue to grow your roster are going to be the key. There's also the added caveat that Marvel Strike Force can do something it doesn't have a great track record of doing. And that's preemptively thinking about the player experience when it comes to the acquisition of GT18. right now, Gear 18 doesn't matter. Because for many of us, that power level increase that we're seeing with the 7 star 5 red characters isn't going to happen because they've allocated very little stars from the events. They're slowly accumulating in our roster, with many characters being almost held on to too long. We can call Agatha and Icarus 2 examples of that specifically, that have really kind of been held on and, you know, not being given to us in adequate timing for their power. So all of that being said, if they look at this as an opportunity to say, okay, well, we put G18 way up here. Now we have to make star levels more accessible for the players. Well, then great. But if they're amplifying the star level plus the gear level, then watching players like Juicy punch up against, you know, teams, and the fun you had with him theory crafting may just be writing on the wall for what we'll see in the future. Just dominated by massive accounts that have no equal. And so I hope this ushers in an era where they sit back, and if they really care about the player experience, they sit back and they look at what happens to the players who are light spending, free to play, or even moderately spending, that don't want to have the access to these characters that don't have 7 stars across their roster. Anyway, guys, RemanX here, back on YouTube. Thanks for all the I hope you guys like this video. Again, I am going to be collecting your comments, and we'll have some dialogue in the comment section here. You guys will see me responding regularly because I really want to gain your feedback about this, so I get my head around what the community really feels about this. And I hope to see you soon.